All right, let's get started because we don't have a lot of time. At least that's the perspective of today's guest, Jodi Wellman. Jodi is an executive coach and speaker, and she's the author of You Only Die Once, and she's a big fan of remembering Memento mori, remembering that we are going to die. That scarcity of time, she insists, can help us make the most of the time that we have, and it doesn't have to be morbid. It can be fun, and it can really push us to live the lives that we want to live rather than waiting and looking back with regret. So as I said, not much time. Let's get going. Without further ado, Jodi Wellman, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Oh, thank you. I am stoked to be here.
Me too. I'm smiling ear to ear because we're going to talk about death.
Oh, I love your attitude. Yes, it's possible to smile.
Not only possible, but you argue imperative. So you wrote a book with a fantastic title of You Only Die Once. And I have to start by saying, the title inspired me. I was talking to my daughter, who's a coach and who's studying to become a therapist. And we were talking, and I said, your book is so much fun. It reminded me of kind of my daughter's style. It's like telling her she should write a book. So we were discussing like what she's interested in. And she was saying, I think people should just slow down and think more, but people don't like to be alone with their thoughts because their thoughts are such dicks. And I was like, there's your title. Your thoughts are dicks.
That is so brilliant. Yes.
So
high five to her.
So totally inspired by the style, tone, and content of your book. So you've already made our day.
I love it. And I think I'd get along well with your daughter.
I think so too. So let's talk about you wrote a book called You Only Die Once, How to Make It to the End with No Regrets. And I guess I would love to start with the story of how a normal person ends up writing a book that abnormal.
I love the question. I also love that you're assuming I'm normal and that I wrote an abnormal book. That is a great compliment. I have always just found this mortality reality baffling and amusing and absurd. So let's just get that out of the way. I mean, it's always been funny to me. I've always worked in professions around helping people, whether it was originally early days and like back in the fitness business or with leadership development, executive coaching. And it's all about like, let's live life better. But yet we're all walking around and we all know that we're all going to die. It is just a bizarre juxtaposition. So I've always found that to be something that fortunately I didn't find existentially anxiety inducing, but it was something amusing and fascinating and worth studying. So I went to school for my Master of Applied Positive Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, and I made this topic of Memento mori, which is Latin for remember we must die. I made it my thesis because thankfully there's just a crap ton of research on it that does help prove that if we are willing to go there, if we are willing to explore this idea and not deny it, not head for the hills, that it actually can open us up to living, with more urgency and intention. And along the way, my mom died early, like in her late 50s, and she had so many regrets, the kind about the paths she didn't take. She had so many dreams she didn't take action on, and that for me was a very startling wake-up call because I think, to be honest, I could see myself maybe doing the same thing. Having ideas without the confidence to execute. And so that for me was no. Life's short. We got to get on with this shit.
Yeah. Now you write, shit's fine. Shit's a 2 on the 1 to 10 scale of linguistic condiments on this podcast. But you write about like discovering your mother's regrets when after she died, you're kind of going through her things. Did you have a sense when you were younger that she was living a life of regret?
Good question. The answer is yes. And then it is a very fascinating thing that happens when you see it all together. So along the way, she'd always had business ideas. She was always writing manuscripts or short stories or drawing cartoons for maybe a local paper. She was coming up with things. And, it was always kind of a fact that mom's a dreamer, not a doer, which was sort of sad. She would take a little bit of effort. I remember one of her main books she wrote, she did send out to a few publishers, and she got, as most people do, a couple rejections, and she let that be the end of it. So we knew along the way growing up in our family, like this is kind of mom's MO. But the crystallization of it all, when you are in one part grieving, oh man, mom's gone, that sucks. And then, oh my gosh, I'm packaging all this stuff up. I'm turfing all this stuff out, cleaning up her place. The fact it was so concentrated, seeing it all together, all these business cards she had made over the years with different ideas, all the manuscripts, it just felt like that was that really, like I say, a concentrated cocktail of dreams gone awry.
So I want to challenge that a little bit from my own perspective, not in terms of, you and your mother, whom I don't know at all, but like there's times where I will just like sit and write a poem, or I'll come up with an idea, or I'll have a very rich internal life that will never make it out into the world. And I don't know if that's dreaming, not doing, or if that's a different kind of doing. How do you help me think about that?
Oh, for sure. I think there's an easy way to distinguish, which is along the way, you're writing a poem, for example, if you tell everybody in your world, oh, I'd really love to get this published, and that's a goal that you have set in some way, shape, or form, maybe out loud, there's an intention there, and then writing it and not doing it has a very different energy than being creative for creative's sake, right? Doing a drawing, writing the poem, coming up with something, making music, doing something, anything, whatever that might be, or even, I don't know why anybody would come up with a business plan if it was meant to be dormant, but hey, who knows? But it's when you articulate, I want this to happen in the world. I would love to open this store. I would love to start, like my mom's case, she wanted to start a hiking stick carving business. And she did go and set up shop at one little flea market, and she made little like logos and little price tags. And like, we're talking about intentions that are very clear, and then not pressing the go button. That does seem different than creating and then maybe seeing where it takes you or not.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you begin the book by just throwing numbers in our face. And so and specifically like how long we got. Right? So I did the calculations. I did it the way you suggested first, subtracting my age from 76. And I didn't like the number, so I decided I'm going to live to 93. And the number was better.
It is funny how you can manipulate that number. and how did that feel?
Well, I feel like, because you also talk, and we can get into this kind of very tongue-in-cheek about things like, red wine and brownies and indulgences, not just living, a kind of Spartan stoic life. My kids and wife will tell you that I'm pretty like regimented and stoic about diet and exercise. So I feel like I've earned a few extra years if I can, avoid the traffic. But it does raise that question, because for a bunch of years I was a health coach, and I worked specifically around nutrition, plant-based nutrition, and the people who are like, life without X wouldn't be worth living. I was trained to kind of disdain that. And they're going like, you sad little man,
Right. You're missing out on a lot of life, so to speak. Well, this to me, it's funny you're saying this, because I'm hot off the heels of a friend of mine is doing a lot of research in desire theory. And at the end of the day, so much of this comes down to taking your own pulse. So what I mean by that is this. If we know life's short, you do your math, and I think you are probably pretty appropriate to say 93 is my age. I mean, the point here is that we want to do a calculation that helps to illustrate that it is a number that is diminishing every freaking Monday, right? Like the number is not getting bigger, it's getting smaller, and fine, you fudged the end game, whatever. But the how to live, like you've adjusted it to 93 because you feel like some of your healthy lifestyle stuff has bought you maybe a little more time. And also you might just be fabulously delusionally optimistic, and like high five to that too. Well, I guess back to like how to live a life up till that, whenever we do go, is I think there's no perfect balance for one individual. There's no recipe, right, about how, well, you have to have this many desserts to feel like you're indulging and enjoying life. But I think the issue is, and everything for me comes down to, would you regret doing it or not doing it? So back to taking your pulse. If at the end of a really great dinner out with friends, you end up feeling like, I really would have loved to have tried that amazing smelling bread dipped in that special thing over there, but I abstained because I have a hard rule that I don't eat bread, but I feel like I'm kind of sad about that. Maybe every now and then I might want to have some bread. Well, and have the freaking bread a little bit, right? Or versus like that to me is an example of maybe depriving yourself of life versus, you're not necessarily going to have, a pint of Ben and Jerry's every single night. I mean, that does sound lovely.
But where I come from, that kind of calculation, this is just a very narrow issue, and there's a lot of broader things I want to get into. But I am bringing myself to this conversation.
Great.
And one of the fears is, okay, I've got my rules. My rules have really worked for me. Like I lost a bunch of weight, I felt healthier, I got more productive, but they're rules, right? And so if I do this kind of like no regret thing, like once I pop the bubble, there's a fear that there's it's going to be riots and burning and pillaging and like
hell breaking loose.
6 years later, I won't have flossed. Like I can go there.
It's the gateway. I got to tell you, having that piece of bread at the table is the freaking gateway to the demise of your existence. And now your new math is going to be 49. Well, I will say you are highlighting something. It's like living the life where you feel like the rules keep the trains on the track, keeps things going for you. And are you happy? Are you feeling like that? Like this might have been you back then, or is one right now, hypothetically, feeling like this is the good life for me because I feel proud of myself? Because let's be honest, there's a version where you could say, I feel really proud of how I'm taking care of myself. And I might need to over-index on being a little bit too regimented because I do fear that if I open a bag of potato chips, then, it is the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
But if you can't find a way to have it in some moderation, then maybe the regimented life is maybe better for you. That's fine, but I'm not here to tell you it is or isn't. It's more about every now and then doing that pulse check and saying, I would really love some Cool Ranch chips. And maybe this Saturday I'm going to treat myself and do it, and then I'm going to get back on track again. I just don't want to live a life without Cool Ranch chips every now and then. Right.
So you're asking something that's much harder than following a rule, which is like intentional awareness.
Oh yeah, it's very hard.
Like,
yep. Yeah.
Like, that's what rules can keep me. Yeah, I don't have to do that because I have rules to follow.
Oh my gosh, I gave up chocolate for 25 years in a row, and it was easy. Everyone would say, "Oh, that sounds so hard." I say, "Well, it was a bit of health nut back then." And I've since abandoned that drastically. But I would say it's a lot easier to not have it be an option than it is to eat it in moderation and be thoughtful about it, of course.
Yeah.
But now I will just tell you, for coming on the other side, not being able to have, for me, having some chocolate sometime is part of the experience of being alive that I am choosing to revel in one small way. So I know it's a slippery slope, and I know that for some of my only question is for people who are very rule following, types, the regimented types, is it helping you in a way that's making you feel good about your life? And if it is generally, then I'm not here to ruin your life. Just keep doing it. But if you every now and then think, I do really think that I would just if I got to the end, here's the thing, if you get to the end, would you be like, I just really wished I'd had a piece of cheesecake every now and then, like more often than I did, which was like once every 7 years? Then maybe make your date and have a live day. Maybe it's once a month. You have I am enjoying the foods that I think it's not a sinful day, because I think that's sometimes that like deprivation and then indulgence. But it's like, this is my reveling in life, and I'm going to have the foods that I just find to be joyful. And maybe that's permission.
Yeah. By the way, I think it's a great slogan for a self-help author and coach. I'm not here to ruin your life.
You dicks. Your dicking mind.
So when you ask sort of, am I happy? So I would give you a different answer than my kids would give you. And you sort of nailed me to the wall with your 2x2 matrix. I fucking hate those things because they
get you every time.
So, yeah, it got me. So like the vertical is meaning and depth with high meaning at the top and low meaning at the bottom, and the horizontal is vitality, which is very low vitality over on the left and very high vitality on the right. And when I looked at it, I'm like, I'm closer to, like, my kids would absolutely tell you this because they think I'm sort of like borderline depressed because I'm like so into like, fitness and like being responsible and worrying about money and stuff. And they say like, you're much closer to meaningfully bored than astonishingly alive. And I looked at this little thing and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of like I've got props behind me that I hardly ever touch, right? My guitar, my juggling balls, my rubber banana. That felt good.
It?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the word props. So it sounds like you said your kids would nail you. Their perception is you don't have a vitality-filled life with a lot of fun and pleasure and experience. You may have meaning, they think, you tend to agree? Is that right? You're kind of thinking you're busted?
I kind of think them and this matrix, makes me feel like, and like, I moved, my family and we moved to Spain from the US. And like, people are like, oh, that's amazing. How could you do that? What an adventuresome. It's like, no, it didn't feel like that.
Yep.
Like from the outside, things can be perceived a certain way, but it's still, no, it does not feel like I am living my one precious life, Mary Oliver style.
Yeah. Well, I have a question or 7 for you. One has to do, well, first of all, I want to normalize. If you
First, you need my credit card number so I can pay you for this upcoming coaching session.
That's right. It's a 1-900 number. It goes by the minute. I don't know. The meaningfully bored quadrant that it sounds like you have sort of lasered it on, that is the most common place that adults find themselves globally. And it's that one where it is like, my meaning's okay for whatever reason, but I do think maybe I have that niggling suspicion, like I could be having a little more fun. I could use these things that are not just props, but actually, play the instrument, do the thing. And that is, that's also an indication of being a responsible adult that, like it sounds like you said, I think about money, I think about health. And so you are probably a pretty vigilant guy. And I guess my question is, this goes back to all being relative. Like your kids might judge you and say to the effect of you're so freaking boring, essentially. But maybe for you, you're like, yeah, I don't want to live a life like you. Like I like a quieter existence. But I guess my question is, what would be an example of something you might want to do that would widen your life with a little more vitality? Yeah. What would something be?
Yeah, and just to be clear, my kids don't think I'm boring. They think I have bored myself.
Yeah,
they think I'm really interesting. And,
okay, good.
Right, so it's like wasted capital P potential, as you put it.
Well, like,
right?
Yeah, okay.
Right, like I started writing a novel, and it sucks, but it could be good one day. When I was a kid, I wanted to be, left fielder for the New York Yankees or someone in theater. Like I've always really loved the attention of others in a way that most people do not. And so like, performance, expression, like both of my kids are artists, visual artists, musical artists, and they see that in me, but not coming out or coming out, in tiny little dribs and drabs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like you should have a podcast.
Yeah.
To perform. I mean, okay. And here,
well, you notice the podcast is always centering somebody else.
Yeah, that's true. Right. So maybe we need to flip the table and now all of a sudden you would get, all right, I see where your next show is going. I want to interview you.
Yeah, right.
So, well,
I'm sure your PR person would be horrified. Like, what did you talk about? What did you talk about with that?
No, this to me, trust me, this makes me happy, talking about you instead of me. But I want to go back to your perception of maybe feeling like you might want a little bit of widening. Because on one hand, I I get a little bit defensive, to be super honest, because I recognize I'm the one that called the quadrant astonishingly alive, which is where it's plus on meaning, plus on vitality. And I think that there's inherent pressure baked into some of those words, where it looks like it has to be flashy, snazzy.
Yeah, it's definitely a judgmental model.
It could, well, maybe it's just open for interpretation, because allow me to define. Astonishingly alive means whatever that, what makes you feel alive. So sometimes we compare ourselves to other people, and that never ends well. But if you just stop and look at you and say, wait a minute, these are the things that I really enjoy doing. These are the special things that only happen once in a while, like maybe getting to the Swiss Alps or something bigger that I love. But in a day-to-day existence, am I feeling like, am I, like you said, am I living my one wild and precious life? Is there an asterisk there where it's like, are you putting too much of it needs to be that I'm out every other night and I'm trying the new restaurant and I'm strumming that guitar until the freaking strings break, and I'm like, but that to me also may not be sustainable or enjoyable. It might sound exhausting. So what is your rhythm that actually might make you feel good? And I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves is, like, for me, I cannot have that much social stuff. I'm too introverted to have that many things going on. Whereas for some people, that's their version of astonishingly alive, and they might judge me for, they wouldn't define it for their life, but I don't fucking care what they want. What they think about my life. It's like, I only want a social thing once every, 10 days, say. And so that to me, or, you could play the guitar. You'd be like, if I played it maybe once a week, that might make me happy. How often do you want to play the guitar? Can we just nail this one down?
So I want to make music 4 or 5 days a week and perform once a month in public.
This is so exciting. Are you already performing, or is it a goal?
I'm not. I performed once because where I live now.
Yeah. Okay. How do you start? What will it look like?
Well, so that's where responsible Howie jumps in and says, okay, you've just moved to Europe. You're trying to set up a business. There's not enough hours in the day. Right? So you got to get the business stuff done. A lot of the people here that I would play with are retirees, and they invite me for a jam session from 11 till 1. I'm like, that's not going to work with, responsible Howie can't show up for that.
Ah, okay. Can I just fact check that for a sec? Because
sure.
I also get a little rigid where I must be working in working hours, and you have to say it in that robot voice too. Is 11 to 1 really hard and fast rule, or is it you just feeling, what is that?
Yeah. So that's really interesting because for me, that ties to the rules and faith in myself. So I don't really have faith in myself that if I say, all right, I'm going to go out and have fun and I'm going to work from 5 to 7, that I'm actually going to work from 5 to 7. Because at 5 o'clock, I'll be like, oh, I'm so tired. I just want to blah, 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 blah.
Right. I understand that. I suffer from the same issue. And I guess maybe this is the perspective that a lot of this boils down to, is your belief in how much you value this sort of life worth living. And that if you were on your deathbed, let's just pick tonight. Nothing like tonight.
Okay.
Would there be a part of you that would think, and I'm only going to narrow in on the music one, but there could be other things, but we're trying to identify things that you would kick yourself for and say, man, why didn't you just make time for that, or do more of that, or do less of that? Would you be kicking yourself for not trying to find a way to make 11 to 1 work sometimes, or no?
Yeah, before I answer that, so I kind of want to expand out to, this is the value that I've gotten from the book so far, because what you're really saying is if you want to get leverage on these vague dreams and wishes and insights, then let's make friends with Grim Reaper and really rub your face in the fact that this is not a dress rehearsal, and this is not a video game where you get to put in another 50 cents and play again.
Exactly. So by doing the annoying deathbed regret exercise and going, oh shit, I am at the end, I'm reclined here. Of course it gives you the perspective that is more valuable than if it's just responsible Howie on a Tuesday. Because
Yeah.
you'll never stick up for your life. Who's sticking up for your vitality? Nobody. And you're going to get, and we get to create a false, admittedly, I say false, who might have known, but it feels false to me for my own life when I will overplay the responsibility and the thing of I can't leave from 11 to 1. For me, it might be I want to go to the art museum here in Palm Springs. Oh, but I'm working today. Yeah, you work for your fucking self. Like, you make your own schedule, and what if you go and you actually get more creatively inspired, and then you come back and you can approach, maybe I only work for another hour or two in the afternoon, or maybe I don't. Maybe I have a super productive next morning where I get more stuff done because I just feel so alive and so inspired. So is there not room for a life for you that actually allows for more of it sounds like it's performance, it's creativity, it's expression, right?
So what I would say is there is definitely room for that experiment.
Okay.
Right? So it's almost like as I'm hearing you say this, it's like, well, I don't know if that's going to work, but I haven't even, had the guts to try the experiment.
To try it. Oh, thank you. I love this. It's low risk, right? It's and I guess my question is, are you going to be fair about the experiment where you'll say, I'm going to do this for 3 weeks versus I'm going to go once and I'll see how it feels. It's going to feel uncomfortable the first few times, right?
Yeah.
Like most of us, when we're going after dormant dreams, this is just something I think we want to caution, is that usually we're delaying some of our vitality-filled endeavors or dreams because they represent either the discomfort of a change in a schedule or routine that we feel good about, right? This is your case. Or we're actually afraid, like in some cases, I know a lot of people that will say, I'd rather not go to that jam session because I'm going to be rusty and I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to sound untalented. I'm embarrassed, right? Yeah. Or there are a lot of other things that'll hold us back because it can be scary to put yourself out there in different ways. And so I think we just need to be honest and call ourselves on that and say, it's okay, honey, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm just going to go and try and have fun. And maybe I'll get good at it as I go. And I'll get used to the fact that this is what I do. Once or twice a week, I do 11 to 1, and I build my schedule around it, and I'm proud of that. So I guess my question is, how long are you willing to give the experiment before you actually give it an honest go?
Yeah, well, I did science and research for a while, so I know that you need a p-value and you need a power, right? You need a confidence interval. So obviously, I need a long enough sample size.
This is going exactly in the direction I hoped it would go. Deep into stats. Yes, I love this.
Yeah, I was thinking of a regression analysis with a MANOVA on the side.
Oh my gosh, this is giving me. I'm going to have a seizure.
Yeah. I studied stats at what we think of as your rival school at Temple.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I don't think you think of it as your rival school, but we did.
But Temple, do you call yourself a Templeton?
I never have.
Oh, well, now I'm calling you Templeton, so I was going to say Templetons too. But it sounds like you did pretty all right in stats if you're still pulling out the jobs.
I walked away
Okay.
on my own 2 feet. Yeah.
Fair. You didn't run. Well, I think back to your word. I'm really just actually struck by is props. The idea that you have these things. Will they be artifacts in the end? Kind of like me cleaning out my mom's desk about things that you wanted to do and didn't. And let's just size this because this is where I recognize many of us do the thing, which is what I do too. It's sort of like it's either an all or nothing approach, like I'm fully committing and it's going to take over my life and I don't have time for that, or it's that, or what if you just put a note in the calendar and it was one Saturday morning a month that you just said, I'm going to dick around, with this thing and play with it and have fun with it and just see where it goes. And maybe maybe the love is gone. Like maybe I no longer want to do that hobby, but maybe it triggers me to want to investigate something else. And I just think that that's what we owe ourselves, is to try to just plug into stuff a little more often, typically, in order to experience more out of life.
Well, when you say that, and I'm thinking again about your invitation to stare death in the face on a regular basis, and arguably death is like a pretty big change, but it's not like the whole of life has changed. I think you have a quote in there from somebody about life being changed and that idea that maybe something no longer holds juice for me. Like I was until about 5 years ago, I was a runner. I did ultras. I can't say I ever enjoyed it, but I enjoyed people's faces when I told them. And then when I decided, I sort of got injured, but I could have gotten back, and I decided I just don't want to do that anymore. And there was this tremendous feeling of like identity confusion.
Yep. Yeah. I love that you're talking about this because we do want to classify and categorize ourselves. It's kind of how we're wired as humans. We want to sense make and then meaning make. And I love the idea back to, but you think you used the word invitation about me. And yes, I want to be an inviter, an encourager, a permission giver of what if we looked at life a little bit like a smorgasbord or like a portfolio, even when it comes to, so trying different things. We don't have to start a hobby and then commit to it like when you're a kid and it's like, you got to keep these piano lessons or else, where it's like, thanks, can I blow my head off? We don't have to do that. And so part of me thinks for some of us, especially those of us who get bored easily or really like variety, I like it as sort of like the bee pollinating approach. Like I'm going to try this thing for an 8-week course and then I might stick with it, but I'll probably move on and try something new. Or you can even do that, and I'm going to just blasphemize for a second for some of you listening, with your career. You can have a portfolio career where you change your career as often as you want. And it doesn't make you fickle and it doesn't make you flighty. It actually just might make you somebody who is admirable in a way of like, you're going to go explore a new interest. And so sometimes back to identity, we really identify with our careers. We also identify, yes, with roles and our hobbies. I'm a runner or I'm a piano player, but I'm a lot of things. And I like this idea. Someone wrote a book once, I think I have it here, but the idea about like a Renaissance soul. Some of us just have lots of interests and maybe lots of aptitudes, but you don't even have to be good at it. Who cares about that? But like, I get to dabble, and I don't know. That's a life that I might value because I value variety more. That I want to be at the end in my, reclined. Although I won't be in a coffin, I'll be in an urn. I want to be all dustied up in my little ashes in my urn and be thinking, holy cow! Like, look at the assortment of activities and jobs that I got to do. I'm so glad that I tried them on for size. And some of them I was like, oh, no. And that was part of the fun, is to know, nope, abandon that mission. And that's cool too.
Yeah, but a couple of things come to mind. One is I've been studying with a teacher of non-duality, so basically, like a meditative, approach to saying that like none of this is real. We're all just universal consciousness having this experience. And the metaphor that these folks often use is like, you're going to see a movie and you're sitting there and you're really engrossed in the movie, and it could be a love story or a horror story. It could end well or badly, but you're there for the movie, but then like, you're not the movie. Like it's not happening to you. And so this idea that you get to like, there's no wrong way to do it. There's no, and I think a lot of us, I certainly grew up with like a moral mission, like this is who you have to be a good person. Yeah. Social constructs that we are raised to believe things, or we're often afraid about what other people will think about us, and that's okay to an extent. But you're right, there are no rules. You get to change your business, and you don't have to care about what's LinkedIn going to think if I change the title. No one fucking cares. Do it. And or if you change it, you might inspire someone else to say, oh, another thing in 2 years. Maybe that might inspire me. Like you can do whatever. You can start a new website. You can shut the website down. You can do all the things, because we're just forging our way. Like it's all ridiculous. We're all dying. Why not do cool things before we die? Yeah. And, I had a crisis like this about my podcast, because this is, as of right now, there are 600 published episodes. And I've been doing it for 10 years. And I'm like, I had to ask myself, like, do I still want to do it? Because I've changed businesses twice. Plant Yourself started out as like plant-based nutrition, and now it's something much bigger and broader and different. But it's like, am I doing it because I'm scared of not doing it?
Oh, where'd you land?
I decided I was only going to have conversations that really excited me. And if I'm going to talk to an author, it's because I really want to read the book and I wouldn't do it otherwise, or wouldn't prioritize it. So, and I'm also, when we moved to an apartment in this town, there was a couple of weeks that were really hectic and I didn't publish. And it was the first time I hadn't published on a weekly basis since I started. And like my house was not hit by a meteor. And in fact, I'd have to say, nobody gave a damn.
People were knocking on your door like bill collectors. Where's the podcast?
Where's the podcast? Yeah, I thought they couldn't live without me. It turns out I'm not that important.
Well, you took that one in a dour turn. And so lesson learned, what? You can take breaks. You can laser in on more.
Yeah, I'm setting my rules. If doing it every week is a burden, I don't have to do it every week. Oh, but also, like when I say, I don't feel like it took a downward turn to say I'm not that important. Right, I find it liberating because I was taught that I was extremely important, and if I didn't do my important stuff, the world was going to suffer.
Yeah.
And it turns out, as you write, like we're not that special.
Oh, thank you. I love that differentiate. That's a really good point in the grand, like in the big grand scheme of things. Being kind of small in that way is helpful. Can I also ask you a question, because that same spirit where you are doing a little bit of I don't have to do this every single, the cadence you were. Where's that guy when it comes to doing an 11-to-1 jam session?
Well, there's the guy who keeps track of the finances.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And, the podcast, honestly, I don't think it's ever made me a dime, but I still think of it as a business. I mean, it's gotten me out there. It's got, it's definitely had a material benefit in my life beyond the wisdom that I've accrued and the pleasure of having these conversations.
Yeah.
So it feels more responsible to do the podcast.
Okay.
But again, I'm being responsible to a fairly narrow framing of who I am. And when you keep saying you're going to die one day, that really puts me off balance.
Yeah. It's an intentional and annoying and important vertigo, is to do that. Wait, what? And I guess what I'm pointing out, and you see this, is that there was a part of you that was willing to accept that the cadence of the podcast could be altered, and that you kind of said, like, I'm making this up, like you said, like I make the rules. And so it could be the same way. I think that your tie to the ROI of every hour you spend is interesting, which is normal, right? We have to do this, especially running our own businesses. And so that it might be, like, it all comes down to values. Like, what do you want more? And maybe right now, here I am coming on strong. I'm like just a dog with a bone, but maybe I should just let the bone down for a second and be like, maybe I want you to play guitar and jam more than you want that. But I actually think that you said you wanted. And so maybe right now, maybe the true answer is no, I feel better plowing through 11-to-1 every day as part of my long work, not long, whatever my decided work day is. And then I'm going to live, but I guess that's then where I'm going to go, where then is the room for this thing that you're stating you want? Could it make your life richer in ways that actually add to the rest of your life? Of course, that's my hypothesis, but yeah.
And there's, but so much of it is the not knowing and the willingness to ask the question and give it a try. Like, I have in my head that I would love to be a rich and famous novelist.
Yeah.
And I suspect that I wouldn't.
Really?
I suspect that's a fantasy untethered from the reality of who I am and how I would want to live. And also, there's plenty of things where I want the outcome without the sacrifice or the effort, right? And that's just a matter of like growing the fuck up.
Yeah, that's self-aware of you, and yet I think that the former coach in me just wants then to like extract with a little ice pick, I guess. Like chip away and go, well, then what are the things that the fantasy is composed of? Like, is it you said rich and famous author. Is it again about people knowing you for your creative expression?
I think it's being able to be creatively expressive fully and feel like the universe has got my back. Like it's not an irresponsible way to live. Like, being an actor, being a director, creative, if I didn't have to work, the question, if I won the lottery, if I didn't have to work for money, I would do a lot of what I'm doing now. And I'm sort of, coaching and mentoring people, and it gives me great pleasure. And I would do a lot more sort of fun, creative things with other creative people just for the hell of it. Right. So that's where it feels like there's, the balloon of responsibility is squeezing out the cotton candy of joyful expression.
I love the visuals and the flavors. Well, yeah, it sounds like this is an important part of your life, and you're highlighting the classic conundrum, which is like maybe the 11-to-1 actually is not part of your life right now because it does feel constricting and very specific. But maybe there's an example of something at like the local theater or something that you can get involved in a less committed way that you could do in an evening when you normally would be available. It's so obvious to everybody listening right now. And can we all just join in together and like flood your inbox or whatnot with like, we want more of your creativity. We want you to express it. We want you to do it. This to me, back to capital P potential. It's like, this is in you and you know that you want to be able to use more of it. How could it not be something that comes out of you? And now I realize I'm officially, strong-arming you into it. But I think you've been nudging yourself already.
Yeah, I think I've been asking for it. So.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my question is like, what do you have to gain if you did more of this creative stuff?
Yeah, then there are these two voices in my head. One is the sort of cynical, rational voice of, oh, this is just self-indulgent. And then there's this other sort of knowing voice that's like, more of this makes you way more attractive to the world. Just in terms of getting in front of people who want to give me money. Right. So that's the other thing that I'm really appreciating about the book is that it's evening. It feels like for me, it's evening the scales so that faith can, like this knowing that is so undervalued by the culture in which I grew up and the wider culture, that this kind of wise knowing that doesn't get filtered through thought or through emotions, that you're kind of, it's like the the weights on an elevator that make it very easy for the elevator to go up and down. I feel like your invitation to look death in the face makes it easier to approach life through this kind of knowing, this faith, as opposed to the demand for certainty.
Ooh, I really like the way that you framed that. Yeah, because I think that there is something in there about the paying attention to something that is a deeper wisdom. It is an inner knowing. And I guess maybe what this kind of comes down to is like, are you going to listen to it or suppress it? And, given that life's short, my encouragement, my urging, my reach through and shake you almost aggressively, violently is like, go for it, do it. Listen to yourself. Listen to that. Follow that faith.
Yeah.
That this is something that is going to make you feel alive.
Yeah, and what I like is that, when you say it to me, it doesn't mean very much. But when I go through these exercises and I say it to me, it's like it's hard to wiggle out of that half Nelson.
Thank you. That is exactly what I want. I want people locked in the half Nelson by yourself. Yeah, it is powerful when you're the one and you articulate what it is you want more of, where maybe things have gone a little flatlined in life and where you want to infuse, I guess maybe use the AED. I'm going to really kill all these death metaphors, believe me. But that is, you using it against you is really powerful.
The AED is the thing on the wall?
Yeah, the little jumper cables.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Defibrillator.
Right, okay. I just assume when I'm talking to someone who's in like personal development that it's some sort of acronym for.
Oh, yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy or something. Yeah. Okay, we're going back to stats. We're back in the what? Yeah.
Right, I'm an expert at AED. Really? I mean, if you die, I can maybe bring you back to.
Right. I will electrocute you.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the notes that I wanted to talk to you. We only have a couple more minutes. First of all, I love that you like reframed the word deadline to just like hear, listen to it. Like, oh my God, the word, there's dead in there.
There could not be a better word. Like, I am just super obsessed because this all wraps up into this concept about how, let's be clear, we often procrastinate our lives, right? We do this thing, I do it too, where it's that I have an idea about something that would be either a big juicy goal or just something kind of cool. And I'm going to do it later. Maybe it's when work dies down, right? Or when I've earned enough money and then I have breathing room, or when I retire. Okay, all these things are going to make me like give you that look. But the idea about procrastinating, postponing our existence, is that we need a deadline in order to get anything done, right? So we like to magically think, well, I'm going to do that later, but then later is elusive. It may not come, or when your version of later comes, you may not be able-bodied. And so all we have is now. So we need the deadline. Now, the ultimate deadline is actually still problematic. So for me, I have 1,810 Mondays left to live. But let's be super duper honest. The last chunk of years are not going to be me at my best, right? Like if I am trying to get into, I don't know, if I want to try pickleball, I don't know if I want to try pickleball. Everyone else is, maybe that's a good reason not to. I don't know. But let's just say I want to try pickleball. I don't think I should wait until like my last 6 Mondays because I will probably not be shuffling around the court, right? And so this kind of actually abbreviates the deadline. You know from all of your fantastic health background that there's such a thing as healthy life expectancy, health span. It's not really just about the fact that we're going to live maybe up to 4,000 Mondays. So it's about now my deadline has actually been a bit abbreviated. And now that's actually the thing that is even more helpful, even though it is shitty and morbid. But it's that now I know why would I put it off? If there is really no good reason other than I'm busy. You'll always be busy. Your life, if you're living life right, but if you're engaged and you're going to have things to do. So you're always going to have that conundrum of what to fit in. And my encouragement is not to fit it all in because that's a good reason to just throw in the cards and have a stiff drink on the couch and not ever engage. But I would say, what about just one small thing at a time? So maybe it is that I, for example, do, I try pickleball like one night a week for a month and just see how that goes. That actually already sounds like too much to me. Maybe it's once every other night or 10 days. And so again, maybe for you, it's that you say to those guys, let me join your jam session just like the first Monday of every month. Just something that's doable. And here's the thing too that is just, I think, beautiful and simple, is that we sometimes just need to demonstrate to ourselves that we give a shit about ourselves, that we're the kind of person who does make a little bit of time for ourselves and our hobbies and our joys. I think you still grapple with, and many of us do, that idea that it's indulgent. And that, well, what does that say about me? And so, okay, fine. I mean, we can't override that perfectly. So just, what about then dosing it? So that it is just enough to say, I did a thing, or I actually strummed the guitar today and that felt kind of cool and I had to retune it, but I did it. And I'm the kind of person who every now and then plays my guitar. That's all we need. It's just little bits at a time to prove that we're alive sometimes.
I love that. And I love when you talk, you're basically saying, when you're looking at, how many Mondays or how many active Mondays, you're basically saying, engage with reality, right? So much of my work is is helping people be real, but it hasn't been in a temporal sense. It's been in a sort of like if you're in a meeting and you get pissed off and your body goes into a fight or flight response, say, it's not responding appropriately to reality, which is no one's trying to wrestle you to the ground or slit your throat, right? And you're saying, like, in terms of the reality of your life, like you're living with this map that assumes it's never going to end because we assume we're special and we're not going to die or We just don't,
Right.
we're in denial, as you have this amazing chapter about all the ways in which we can be in denial and how it basically leads to every ill on the planet.
Right. Yeah, it all tracks back to that. Yeah, one of the best ways is to think about people, the research around people who've had any kind of a brush with death. Maybe it's a diagnosis that they came back from. Maybe they're in remission from a cancer, or the motorcycle accident that almost took them, or whatever it is. Most of those people tend to have more of a sense of clarity about the things they want to do with their limited time, because they know more than anybody else that, this thing really is temporary. I teetered over the edge, and thankfully I was pulled back from the brink. The rest of us are just walking around like we're totally ignorant mortals, like, I'm going to get to do it later. And again, that whole thing about tomorrow is a premise, not a promise. Don't put off a bucket list item for later, because I like the idea of having plans for later. We all should have really cool things planned into our 80s and 70s and 60s and so on. And now, because I think we want to live now. Who's sticking up for our lives today? And we could get swept up in the current all too easily because we have these notions about what it means to be a responsible worker, what it means to be a responsible parent or human. And don't not be responsible. It's a yes and. Look at you, Mr. Theater. It's classic improv. It's like, yeah, I can still pay my bills. I'm not going to abandon my work every day and just all in favor of jamming it out, but I am now going to just weave in something that just might make me feel like I gave a shit. And that's, my God, talk about a demonstration to your kids that this is the kind of life worth prioritizing.
Yeah.
So anyways, all roads lead back to obviously death, but thinking about people that you know who maybe have come close, or thinking about people that you know who have died prematurely. Did they have we all are going to die with some dreams inside of us. The question is, are we going to be kicking ourselves at the end, or are we going to say, no, you know what? I killed it. Yeah, I could have done those other things, but I really feel proud that I did give those things a try. And I give myself, maybe just an A for effort.
Right on.
Yeah.
So if folks want to follow your work, learn more about you, work with you, where should they go?
Well, I am over at 4000mondays.com and on Instagram at 4000mondays. And
is that numbers or letters or both?
You know what? It's letters, but numbers will get you there.
Okay, you covered all the URL angles.
Yeah.
So 4000mondays.com, and the book is called
You Only Die Once: How to Make It to the End with No Regrets.
Awesome. So we've made it to the end of this conversation, and I have no regrets, even though there's a dozen more things I could have asked you, but that's how life goes. So Jodi, thank you so much. This was really fun. I appreciate your generosity and pitbulling it to kind of push me in directions that I think would be well for me to go.
Oh, thank you for letting me come on a little strong. And yeah, this is certainly time well spent hanging out here with you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, take care. I'll let you know when we publish, and I hope to stay in touch and see what you're up to as you move forward through your Mondays.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
All right, thank you.
And that's a wrap. Show notes available at plantyourself.com/603. Movement news, not a whole lot. I've been under the weather. Today's Tuesday. I've been under the weather since Saturday, so I didn't go play Ultimate over the weekend or work out. I have a workout in about an hour, and I'm going to beg my trainer to let me be really relaxed. Maybe just sort of walk and jog around the beach and, flex my biceps if anyone walks by. But other than that, just going to take a nice slow recovery. Probably not COVID, because Mia also is sick and she took the COVID test and came out negative. So hopefully just a run-of-the-mill little illness that's going to make its way. We're kind of bracing a little bit on the Iberian Peninsula for Hurricane Kirk, which is scheduled to arrive here in a few days. Of course, everyone's keeping their eye on Hurricane Milton. I decided not to play in the Sarasota Sunset Ultimate Tournament in Florida in 2 weeks. We'll see what Milton does. Hopefully, it won't make a mess of the area such that, infrastructure is down and people are suffering. but keeping our eyes on that as well. And of course, got to mention, my home state of North Carolina, or my adopted home state of North Carolina. The western half is still immensely destroyed by Hurricane Helene, and I've been thinking about climate change and the crises going on. And even if you don't believe in climate change, you certainly have to look around at the world and see multiple crises of society and ecology. And when I look at all of them, when I tally them up, when I look at, yesterday was the anniversary of October 7th, the Hamas attack in Israel and the ongoing slaughter in Gaza and proliferation of war and hatred, I get down. I try to focus on personal and organizational and societal development here. But it's hard to shy away from the facts on the ground. And I just want to point out a podcast that I discovered that I'd like to recommend to folks. It's called We Are the Great Turning. And it features the wise, almost centenarian voice of Joanna Macy, a Buddhist scholar and systems thinker and longtime activist, along with a younger friend and activist, Jessica Sarante. I've 1.5 episodes in, and it's giving me not hope, but commitment and purpose to participate in this current moment with as much energy and positivity and, yes, joy as possible. So it's called We Are the Great Turning. You can find it wherever you find podcasts. I think it's wearethe.greatturning.com. It's well produced, way more professional than this one. It's done by Sounds True. If you know them, they're real sticklers for high audio quality. And editing and cutting and all that good stuff that I couldn't be bothered with. So check it out. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you back here next week. As always, be well, my friends.